things, but I think it's essential, especially when we're talking about a way forward, for us to actually have unified mind.
I think there should be a reorientation of the police force entirely, not just in the US, even in Canada, even back home in Africa.
Let us know how many black people are on your board and why you don't have black people. Hi everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much for making time for this. It's very special. And then this is Sofa Convos, and if you're just new on the blog, so Sofa Convos is a place where we have conversations around social issues that affect minorities. So we talk about problems, root causes, and then we talk about solutions. And then today is very special because we have lots of things happening that affect minorities. So in the last 2 weeks, there's been racism, protests, and killings, and I think as a minority, I kind of feel the pain because it kind of hits home, right? To see someone like me being murdered and being discriminated against. So today, what we're trying to do is kind of have a conversation, and I've got a couple of friends here today, and we're going to talk about commitments. So what kind of commitments do we think we want to see going forward in terms of fighting racism? So just a couple of quick introduction. So we have Athena. Athena is a master's student at the University of Calgary, and she's the founder of Goddess Glow Unleashed. What's up, Athena? How are you?
Good. How are you?
All right. Just trying to stay alive, and yeah, it's been crazy though. I guess is what it is.
Yeah.
So we've got Ekene also. Ekene is a PhD student at Michigan State University and is studying applied economics. Ekene, what's up?
I'm doing good, doing great. Try to stay breathing because that's the new slogan.
Yeah. For black people, I guess it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then we've got Marsha. Marsha just finished her master's at the University of Saskatchewan, and she studied educational administration, and her BSc was in international relations.
And social policy.
And social policy, okay? So Marsha, what's up?
I'm good. I'm trying to keep breathing, as he said. I like that term.
I'm just going to go, you want to go first, Athena?
Sure. Yeah, I think that before we can have a conversation about what we want to see, I think that everyone really needs to take time to sit in the moment of time that we're in, really take in not only their own experiences with other ethnicities, but also kind of figure out within our Black community why there isn't more cohesion. I know how it is to see differences between African Americans and Caribbeans, and the thing is we're all Black. And so I think sometimes we do have differences in life practices and all these other things, but I think it's essential, especially when we're talking about a way forward, for us to actually have unified mind, that maybe even though our life's trajectory might have looked different, that doesn't necessarily mean that our stories are not as equally valuable. Yeah. And so I think it's really important for us to start there. And then from there, then we can actually work together. So I think you have to start firstly owning what your biases might be toward your brother and sister that may also be brown.
Okay, so are you saying among the Black community there's this divide and people are not together, we don't act as one community?
Facts.
So okay, that's interesting though. So if I'm going to ask you, if we're going to see some kind of commitments, what exactly do you want to see? What do you want people to start doing from today in terms of trying to fix the problem?
I think the first step then is, if we're trying to first bridge that divide, is having conversations, right, amongst each other about our different backgrounds, how those things can correlate. And then after we can do that, and how do we do that, I think would be, right, we've talked about it, supporting Black-owned businesses, making yourself more visible in the community, going to classes and offering support. I have a women's group called Soulful Sunday for the Soulful Woman, and that is different races all around the world. We Zoom in together and we have conversations, Asian, Black, it doesn't matter. So having those conversations, I think, and creating spaces where women, men of all races, but specifically minorities and and our Black community, can say, these are my traumas, these are the things that I've been through. And then I think it it begins to humanize us, because that is the problem, right? That is why we're dying in the street, because we are not humanized.
So I'm just going to summarize what you're trying to say. So you're wanting to see more conscious conversations around the Black experience.
Right.
That's awesome, actually. I'm just going to jump to Ekene next. Ekene, what do you want to see? Like, what kind of measurable commitment do you want to see?
Okay, I think I share in Athena's perspective. I think as Black people all over the world, we all have our different forms of trauma, but then one person's trauma doesn't minimize the other person's trauma either. For example, the trauma that people on the continent experience is mostly traumas that stem from colonialism, or, well, for a lack of a better word, neo-colonialism. While the trauma that you see people like in the US, like, Black Americans and maybe Black Canadians, the kind of trauma they experience are things that are like, trickle-down effects from racism or slavery. So the thing is, and I think the fact that our trauma differ kind of makes us think like we are different. And that also leads to some level of mistrust. So you see Americans thinking that Africans or international students come to the US to take their spots in school, in terms of affirmative actions and all of that. But I think one thing we forget as a collective is that the way other people see us, and in this way, I'm referring to like Caucasians, they see us as Black people.
Like as fun people, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, if I get pulled over by a policeman, he doesn't care if I'm from the Caribbean or from Africa or if I'm from here. The first thing he sees is my color, my skin color, and that determines how he's gonna treat me. So I think in terms of what Athena is saying, I think Black people have to realize that even given the fact that our trauma are kind of different, we are all in a collective struggle. And we have to find ways to work together to get ourselves, out of this struggle. Then down to your question about what kind of commitment I would like to see, I don't know, I wouldn't like to call it commitment. I would say what kind of changes do I want to see, and well, I would say what we just talked about is changes at the individual level, how we treat each other. But then when it comes to changes in industry and the corporate world, I would say that, there are a few things I would want to see, but there are businesses that have started like putting out, things that they will want to do to change the narrative. For example, Amazon just announced that they're gonna ban the use of facial recognition software by the police, because the software was designed to have some level of bias against Black people. For those who don't understand what this means, there is this sensor in the bathroom that when you like place your fingers or hands below it, you have water starts gushing out or like soap come out. When that sensor was designed back in the day, it was only sensitive to white skin. So if you're a Black person and you put your hands there, nothing comes out.
Yeah.
Black people had to like consciously, revolt against it before the scientific community had, went back and did their homework again to make the software, diverse. So these are the kind of changes I want to see in industry and in the corporate world. As regards changes in, like government policies, I would say that, I think there should be a reorientation of the police force entirely, not just in the US, even in Canada, even back home in Africa, and even in because somehow the way a policeman in Lagos or in Accra, Ghana, or in Lesotho in South Africa, the way a policeman would treat a white person, even back home, from how they would treat a native. Yeah. So
very different.
These issues are not just in the US or in the Western world. Even back home, they are all there. And some states have like started working on this. Minnesota announced last week that they're going to defund their police department and channel funds to minority communities. New York announced yesterday that they're going to have like a police reform Even Michigan, where I reside currently, the governor just issued a statement last week saying that they're going to reform the entire police force because it seems like this has been ongoing and they need to pay like critical attention to it. So that would be my contribution.
So you're wanting pretty much like that education still to say the white man and the black man deserves equal treatments all over the world.
Yep.
And then also for like police reforms, like it should be like a conversation we have every single time.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Marsha, what's up? Let's go.
Because if you look at other races, be it white, be it Asians, Chinese, Japanese, whatever, they tend to be very united with their people, wrong or right. And that is something, I'm going to use a term that makes me uncomfortable sometimes, it's the house slave mentality. Once you have developed a certain relationship with the Caucasians or those kind of persons, you kind of empathize with their behaviors and denounce that of our own people. Now, in terms of what needs to be changed in America or in Jamaica, as he just stated, how the police operate with not necessarily even white people, with somebody with an accent outside of theirs. They will treat that person in a higher regard than how they treat their own citizens. I don't know, we're just an amazing set of people. We have so much potential within our communities if we can realize that without having the cabin and barrel mentality where we have to step on each other to reach up. I feel like we'll be better persons. And also, as I said before, about the police, checking out about mental issues and how we also deal with mental issues in our society might also be a solution. So,
Okay, I think these are like very like wonderful points. Okay, one thing I'm going to add is personally, I think it kind of relates to the points we already talked about. Like we don't talk about Black history in schools a lot. Like people have to understand what Blacks have been through.
Yes.
That's going to help them, like you said, I think it's going to help them understand where people are coming from. Talk about slavery, talk about how people have been maltreated over the years. Talk about the struggles, talk about like all of those things. Like it has to be a part of the school curriculum. Something else I'm going to really say, like it's kind of nice to see companies releasing statements and making donations, but like to be honest, I feel like a lot of people are just acting because the lights are on, there's cameras rolling. I'm like, okay, that's nice, but 6 months down the line, what do you want to do? I want things like talk about racial diversity on your board. What's the racial composition on your corporate organizations? Let us know how many Black people are on your board and why you don't have Black people. Like, we have like really qualified people who can fill these positions, but like there's discrimination for sure.
Not only in corporate companies, but if a man is on trial, a Black man is on trial, do not give him a jury of 8 white people. There needs to be representation. That's another thing that I want to talk about. You cannot have a jury without the person having anybody that's their peers. And I don't mean peers as in friends, but look like them. More representation. And also in the police force, we don't need this one chief. And then when you look, all of his subordinates and his board is filled with white men. I'm not necessarily saying equality, but make it more equitable. Because it's not only Blacks and whites. There are Asian people, that Asian Americans. You have